I lived, bitch. Let's talk about Volkanovski versus Holloway 3. Alexander Volkanovski is the best fighter on the planet. Full stop. No questions about it. No arguments to the contrary. Anyone who still says that Kamaru Usman is pound for pound number one and is not being ironic about it or joking about it in any way possible to make Volkanovski fans mad is smoking crack. Alexander Volkanovski beat Max Holloway like he beat Korean Zombie. He treated him like Korean Zombie. He basically made one of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport look like he doesn't belong in there with him in the cage. And, I mean, there's no other words to describe it. It was basically a complete domination from start to finish. Volkanovski has set a pace, and he held to that pace, and he never ran himself ragged, maintaining that pace for 25 minutes. Zero mistakes made. Absolutely pitch perfect performance. Absolutely perfect decision making. Perfect shot selection. The footwork, ring craft, everything. Just peerless performance, and quite possibly the greatest title fight performance, well, if not in the history of the sport, at least in the last 10 years for sure. So how was that accomplished? Well, first we'll likely need to establish what sort of fighters we were looking at going into the fight, because obviously fighters of this caliber, they always try to improve, they always make certain takeaways about the fights they're in, and even though Max Holloway is more of a I'll just do my thing and force it on you and pour it on you type of guy, he still showcased tremendous ability to adapt in the second fight, and he shows tremendous ability, tactical ability, and ability to adjust mid-fight, despite largely sticking to the same thing. So coming into this fight, we saw that against opponents like Cater and Yair, Max was showing a distinct willingness to mix it up. He was kind of moving towards, I guess, not really becoming one note, but rather optimizing for his boxing. And he was commonly criticized in the aftermath of the Frankie Edgar fight that he's become one note and that it was an uninspired performance. I'm less down on that performance because it was immediately in the wake of that insane war between Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier, which would take lumps out of anyone, and it would have likely ended several primes in a row multiple times over, were it literally anyone else other than Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway, and it still left its marks. And afterwards, Max Holloway got punished for kind of sticking to the same mold over and over again by Alexander Volkanovski, who immediately zeroed in on all the things that he needed to do in order to dominate Max Holloway. It wasn't a complete demolishment. It wasn't a complete, demolition job like it was this time around, but it was still very comprehensive. Alexander Volkanovski has zeroed in on all the things that he needed to mute Max Holloway's ability to build and snowball throughout the fight. But that fight has been broken down many times already. I'm just to recap. Volkanovski used his jab and his lead leg kick and his ring craft and his feints in a very precise sequence that basically made Max gun shy, and that's a feat in itself. So in order to adjust to that, Max Holloway came out basically looking to counter Alexander Volkanovski and kind of draw him into his own range and counter him. And he kind of stuck to it for the first half of the fight, and he basically... And the second round was especially comprehensive in that regard, because that arguably that round was the one that basically won Max Holloway the fight, except that afterwards Max Holloway kind of returned back to his usual self and tried to do Max things again. And that's where Volkanovski was able to rack up points and steal the win. I'm not going to argue about the merits of that decision, because that's kind of like beside the point. At this point, it's kind of at this point it's pointless to argue about whether the decision was correct or not, because I mean you wouldn't get more definitive a conclusion if you tried. I mean, the only thing that Volkanovski could do to top that performance, I guess, is to just do the same thing for 95% of the fight for 4 rounds and a half, and then just knock Max Holloway dead or submit him. I don't know, basically finish him. So, you know. And yeah, Max has been developing these looks. And that's what everyone was talking about coming into this fight, because Max Holloway is a fan favorite. Volkanovski is more of a favorite among those, you know, MMA hipsters that kind of prefer boring stuff like retreating on 45 angles, or retreating on 45-degree angles, good ring craft, L steps, all that kind of stuff. Just twitching your shoulder a little bit to make the other guy jump. I'm being facetious, because the other guy there's another guy that does exactly all those things with none of the interesting things he performed today. He was main eventing. His name is Israel Adesanya, and I hope to never see him headline a pay-per-view ever again if he continues like that. But anyway, apologies for the awkward pauses and the kind of messed up cadence compared to my previous podcasts. I haven't spoken English in a long time, and thus I am severely out of practice and very rusty. But anyway, back to the fight at hand. So Holloway has been developing all these looks. He's been looking to work in transition. He's been, against Yair in particular, he worked wonderfully in transition, faking knee taps, landing clinch knees and elbows on the break in transition between phases. All that stuff is great. Against Keita, wonderful elbow work. One that Keita has stolen for all of one fight at least against Giga Chikadze. Great, excellent. How would that have allowed him to beat Volkanovski is the thing, because everyone focused on the new things that Max Holloway has been developing and talking about the new Max, and talking about the new Max, people kind of forget that what won him those fights against Keita and Yair was that Max was still doing Max fights. Max was still doing Max things. He was still fighting the way Max fights. He wasn't doing anything drastically new. He was just slapping on incremental adjustments on top of a game that he's still stuck to. And it's fine. It's just the nature of the matchup. These guys are both so elite that even incremental adjustments like that could have altered the course of the fight. For example, if Max Holloway landed one of those elbows, managed to find one of those elbows and transitions, if he thought about how he would set up those punishing blows, he might have landed a couple, and then we could be looking at a completely different fight. That's just the nature of the fight. I'm just trying to emphasize just how good both these guys are. But everyone forgot that in the meantime, Volkanovski was also adjusting. He was also improving. He was also working hard on his own fighting style. And he also mostly stuck to his own game, because breaking a winning combination and completely readjusting your style that late into your career when you're not having that much trouble would be dumb, obviously. So it's not a knock on any of them, in that they just simply try to refine themselves rather than reinvent themselves, because they don't need to, frankly. So Volkanovski was steadily improving with his striking and with his understanding and implementation of transitional work as well. But the number one improvement that anyone should notice, that anyone should be able to notice, is just how much better his boxing has become. Previously, it was perfectly functional, excellent, good kickboxing, great jab, nice left hook, great punching power. However, he wasn't this sharp, wasn't this fast, wasn't this quick and precise with his movement in his footwork. Because the one thing I would like to emphasize is his use of 1-2-1s, I would call them, or 1-2-1-2s, in that he kind of uses them like a Soviet style, like a Soviet schooled boxer would, in that he continues to work from, in that he constantly works from this bounce. And it's not like a karate bounce where you just sort of like bounce, hop, 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 and then like a giant burst into range. No, it's like these sharp little, these sort of like staccato rhythm adjustments, minute, small steps, small hops, in and out, like really short, really bursty movement, really explosive. And that kind of allows you to counter in a sequence in the first layer, second layer, third layer exchanges very quickly, just like that. You land a hard jab, in, out, hard right hand over the top, in, out, hard uppercut, in, out, left hook, in, out, 2-3. Oh, you get what I mean. I've kind of talked about this. I've been meaning to get into all this stuff on the boxing instructional that I started recording, but things happened, and so I've been unable to finish it, and I'm still unable to finish it because I do not have my equipment with me. Anyway, we saw that against both Brian Ortega and the Korean Zombie, I'm sorry. I was trying to pronounce his name correctly. I just forgot the sequence in which his names go. Chung Sun Jung, I think. Yeah. Asian card revoked. Anyway, I'm not Korean. So bursting in and out movement allows for great proactive defense and plays into Volkanovski's excellent reflexes. Prior to that, he did not have much in the way of head movement. He mostly relied on reflexes. Or at the very least, his head movement was decent, but not at this level where he was able to evade multiple extremely sharp and fast counters in the pocket with Max Holloway. So beyond that, so there's this really basic, really fundamental, really, really sharp boxing improvements. So against AKZ, against the Korean Zombie, he would throw a baiting jab, dip, return with a hard right hand. Baiting jab, hard jab. Baiting jab, hop step back, hard jab, dip, return hard right hand. Hard right hand. Like a lead right, dip, return with a left hook. All from this really bursty, explosive bounce. The pendulum step. This kind of like more of a boxing pendulum step than the pendulum step that you normally see in MMA. And one thing that kind of keeps tipping me off about, kind of keeps bringing up these Soviet analogies in my brain is that Volkanovski keeps working on the back foot as number 2, and he does an excellent, very comprehensive job of working as number 2, especially compared to someone like, say, well, let's compare him to Iggy for a little bit, like as a funny aside. What does Iggy do? Geiji walks backwards, he hangs around on the outside, he waits for you to come in, For example, Jackie Oliveira would kind of fake coming in. Justin Geiji throws a gigantic 200% power overhand, falls over, falls over, completely loses his footing, completely loses his stance, clumsily gets back up to his feet, waits again, floats on the outside, waits for Charles Oliveira to come in, Charles Oliveira fakes coming in. Justin Geiji throws a gigantic, massive, fuck off, wide left hook, misses by a mile, completely loses his footing, completely loses his stance, falls over, clumsily gets back to his feet. Compared to Volkanovski, stance maintained throughout the entire fight, throughout every movement. Constant, very sharp, quick resets, not lazy resets, not Geiji resets that take ages to get the fighter back into his stance. Sharp. Okay, I missed, back into my stance. Okay, I landed, back into my stance, I'll land again. That kind of stuff. Constantly dipping behind his shoulder, constantly hiding behind his guard, constantly adjusting his head position, head slots, moving his head from one head slot to the next, upper right corner, lower left corner, that kind of stuff. And this is not me talking out my ass. I'm just trying to come up with random terminology like Robin Black. If you actually pick up a boxing textbook, obviously preferably a Soviet textbook, that's what is going to be there. There's the head slots, there's the triangle in which you're trying to hit your opponent, there's the angle at which you're trying to hit the opponent, that's how you move, that's how you reset, all that stuff. And Volkanovski performs that. He performs all that brilliantly, and I don't know if he has been working with a coach that has a background in this type of stuff, or if this is or if he simply has a very, very well-schooled amateur boxing coach. But this is really great basic fundamental stuff that you learn in amateur boxing, if that's your base, if that's where you start out. And he paired this with his lead leg kick, and his lead leg kick and jab pair has always worked really well. And he would bend over at the waist and kind of he sort of has this folding system where he would land the jab off the fold, he would land the lead leg kick off the fold, land the body kick and then fold, and that kind of got him countered, that got him really badly hurt against Max Holloway, who timed the uppercut. And now instead of folding, he utilizes more incremental spatial adjustments mid combination, mid strike, and so that he made hay throughout this fight with that adjustment. And I've talked about before the fight, I wrote a short thread because I've had a little bit of free time, and this fight got me excited, and I did not want to miss on nerding out about this fight. So there was a bunch of dynamics that I talked about, and I talked about how his improved boxing, Volkanovski's improved boxing, might factor in and tie with his lead leg kick and the lead leg to make for a more consistent point scorer. And at this rate, he did not even really need the lead leg kick. He kind of used it to amplify the success he was having in boxing, in the pocket, in exchanges with Max Holloway. And beyond that, he would also against Take Easy in particular, he looked much improved in the clinch, and in Brian Ortega as well. Every time, beyond the improved head movement and proactive defense, where he would constantly check your hands, he would fold his arms into a guard if he felt like you crossed a certain distance. And he always his sense of distance has always been excellent, but now that he actually has defensive measures beyond that sense of distance, he's so much more better. So much more betterer than he was before. He would gauge distance with his arms outstretched. He would sort of hand fight, then he would fold his arms, then he would dip his head, then he would do all this stuff. It works so seamlessly. It's just beautiful to watch. And so against Take Easy, he would And Brian Ortega, when he would miss with a shot and he feels the distance, like he's coming in too close, he just crashes into the clinch, creates a collision, shoulder checks the guy, completely puts him off balance, pushes him off balance, clinches with him, kind of like moves him around and then lands an attack in transition, or continues to chain wrestle, wrestles to the... starts grinding them along the cage, sharply adjusts his weight, moves them, and then he lands in transition. A lot of guys, when they clinch fight, they try to sort of like hold and connect, and it's way less effective than grabbing a hold of someone, really like jarring them with the strength with which you grip them, moving their weight, like using your weight to move them, and then that off balances them and creates the opportunity for you to land something really hard. And that's what Volkanovski did against Brian Ortega and Take Easy, and this time around against Max Holloway as well in several exchanges. So all these incremental adjustments in tandem, in a seamless, consecutive, like, I don't know. All these things in a sequence have worked to completely nullify whatever game plan that Max Holloway had coming into this fight. Because when in the first fight, and it's kind of like an extension of the first fight where Volkanovski nullified Holloway with the lead leg kick, the jab, and the feints, but the adjustment that Max Holloway tried to bring against Volkanovski in the second fight wouldn't work this time around, because Volkanovski wasn't just switching between countering and leading. It was kind of, he tied it all together. He would bring Max Holloway into himself. He would allow him to pressure. He would punish him for trying to pressure him. He would punish Max for trying to lead, and he would punish Max for not leading and simply walking forward. And so he would essentially, Volkanovski was prepared for everything that Max would do, and he was both prepared for the specific counters and he was both prepared for the overall approach. He just knew what Max Holloway is going to do. He just knew what Max Holloway is going to try and attempt and punish him for attempting to perform. And in a way, Alexander Volkanovski basically pressured Max Holloway into constantly making mistakes while fighting off the back foot. And I mean, that's just ace stuff right there. That's what the highest levels of fighting are all about. And that's what I've been missing all these years, all these months, well, maybe years, all these months in MMA lately. There's just high level, genuinely high level, elite decision making, shot selection, fighting, strategizing, everything. Just blows my mind, this stuff. And the best part is, it's all really fundamental. It's all really basic. Anyone can do it. You can absolutely fight like a much worse version of Alexander Volkanovski. You can do it. It's doable. What he does is not beyond the payoff for a normal person to do. He just performs it at such an elite level that you'd have to be delusional to be hoped to match him in any way. You can settle for being a completely dogshit version of Volkanovski and you'll be fine. You'll be fine in training, you'll be fine on the regional scene and amateurs or wherever you want to compete. If you're reasonably gifted, you can try what Volkanovski does and you'll find decent amounts of success. It's all doable. It's all fundamental. And the little stuff I keep nerding out about. It's just how Volkanovski, for example, once again, in the clinch, he wouldn't just grab hold of Max. He wouldn't just try and move him like brute force him into positions. He would dip his weight down. He would sharply like dip his weight to one side, dip his weight to another side, drop his weight, and adjust his weight constantly. And this keeps off balancing your opponent. If you continue doing that, this keeps off balancing your opponent, and this creates opportunities for you to advance position. This creates opportunities for you to separate and land something. This creates opportunities for you to just land something and then separate and then again land something. There's just constant opportunity for offense, constant offensive, constant seeking of offensive options through defensive competence. That's what it was. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant stuff. I cannot emphasize this enough. Just sheer, pure brilliance. Just bloody... I mean... Volkanovski is just... I mean, to paraphrase Nakamura, the best isn't blessed, baby. The best is great. Just 50-45ing Max Holloway. Insane. The specific combos that Volkanovski would perform. I mean, I briefly went over them, but just the mechanics of it, it's beautiful. Like, okay, so you're circling around your opponent, you're forcing him to come to you. You take a quick hop step backwards, take a quick, like a hopping L step to the side, return to your stance, immediately return to your stance, not just circling in the frontal stance, flat-footed or anything like that. Constantly moving, constantly on your toes. Bounce, 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 bounce sideways. Adjust. Take a 45-degree angle step. You see that he's sort of squared up now. Not completely squared up, but sort of squared up. You throw a hard jab. Throw a hard jab. Dip. Avoid the counter. Throw a baiting jab again. The opponent flinches, tries to retaliate and come into you to avoid getting jabbed up in such a manner. Throw a hard jab again, and then followed by a hard right hand. And then another hard jab for good measure to just establish distance again, close the door in the exchange, and then hop step outside again. Retake the center, start over again. And these sequences, these are the sequences that just stupefied Max. And the speed with which it was performed, that's the one thing that you're not likely to be able to recreate. The sheer speed with which Volkanovski moved, and his speed genuinely improved a lot, I think. Just, and not just speed, but the ability to maintain that speed throughout the entire fight. It's again the pace, high pace, and it's always maintained. It's all performed in a rhythm. It's not a lull in the action and then you're running yourself ragged trying to connect. No, it's a constant high anticipation, high pressure game of feints, fakes, jab, hard connection. It's a constant pace, a decently high pace with accelerations in between. That's rhythm manipulation. Occasionally creating a fake lull in the action so the opponent thinks that he now can connect with something, and then you punish him for it. That's what, separates the Mavericks from the Icemans, really. Saw Top Gun, by the way, excellent movie. Not sure it was shown in Russia, but then I'll never know again. I mean, I can look it up, but I don't wanna. I don't give a shit about Russia anymore. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure my peers, and I would like to join them in that regard, if that's the case, would try and band together and publish a more coherent, actual post-fight breakdown. I'm just kind of rusty right now. I caught up on all the dynamics and I caught up on all the things that both fighters were trying to do, but I haven't done this for a long time. Not of my own volition, so I apologize. Apologies for this kind of rambly stuff. I'm just kind of geeking out now, right now. And this is more to just try and get myself back into groove. I want to start talking about fights again. And I guess this I guess this brings us to my situation. Like, where have I been? Well, if you're a returning listener, you will probably know that I am a Russian citizen, and no worries. I'm currently trying to rectify that problem. I'm diverting all my resources on trying to rectify that problem, and the support from my colleagues at the fight site and the support from my subscribers, from our subscribers and listener and reader base has been invaluable in allowing me to do that. So once again, thank you to everyone who supported me and participated in trying to get me out. But to those still wondering, I'm not in Russia right now. I will not reveal where I am right now for safety purposes and for the safety of my friends and loved ones and family, many of whom I've had to leave behind. And one day I hope to rectify that problem as well. But yeah, I'm relatively safe, relatively secure, in a reasonably peaceful place, far away from all the action. But yeah, the situation back home is pretty grim. Receiving news of and rumors from people I know, anecdotal evidence from people I know that young males are being stopped in the street, forced to come with them to the military commissariat, and being shipped off to Ukraine. Russia did not order widespread mobilization, general mobilization, but they still need bodies, and they still trying to throw bodies at the problem. And that's what I've been evading for the last 4 months now. Yeah, the first couple of months were insanely stressful, and I thought my only means of escaping would be to claim asylum somewhere and forfeit any chances of seeing my family for a long while. But yeah, it looks like I'll still be able to immigrate normally, like a white person. So there's that, and I've still been watching MMA and working on some stuff. I hope to kind of shake the jitters off and get back into the groove and start releasing again. Maybe a recap of everything that I've missed, and just to share my thoughts on the stuff that others have covered but you haven't heard about from me personally. If you want that is. If you care, Yeah, if you well, I'm still relying primarily on the fight site income to stay afloat. So if you if you want to support an immigrant, just subscribe to our Patreon. Maybe I'll release a Patreon bonus episode where I, recap the whole thing that's been happening, like the recap of everything that's been happening to me over the last several months, and maybe I'll outline some of my plans. And I've been keeping the patrons up to date as to what I'm doing on Patreon through text posts that are paywalled for safety reasons. But I suppose like a general recap is still in order. Beyond that, I don't know. Depending on the plans of my colleagues, maybe I'll join them for a more comprehensive recap of the event. Yeah, there's that. That's basically it. And in a way, you could say that mixed martial arts have genuinely saved my life, because if I didn't cover this dumbass sport, I wouldn't develop the contacts that I've managed to secure, and I wouldn't be able to leave the country at all. Yeah. Can you imagine that Russia, like the Russian government, offered me to like a free spot at a like an ROTC type institution, and just make me an officer? Now there's a bullet that I like quite literally. Like there's a bullet I dodged in a quite literal sense. Yeah. As always, that's my only consolation. Things could always have been worse. And anyway, I'm yet to catch up on the rest of the event. That's just my immediate thoughts, immediate impressions on Volkanovski versus Holloway 3. Once again, thank you for... thank you for sticking with TFS for as long as you did, even though I didn't release anything. Those people who I'm talking about know who they are, and special thanks to the colleagues, to my colleagues who are all who are not actually doing this full time, but are still releasing content fairly regularly to keep the website afloat. Wouldn't be able to. You get what I mean. I'd be dead if it weren't for you or them. It's just like that's my reality now. Go figure that one out. Okay, anyway, cheers. See you later.